G'day, I'm Paul at GWM. They are bringing so many cars to Australia at the moment, and while the Cannon, their version of the Ute, has been out for a little while now, they've just added this variant to the lineup, and I'm pretty excited by it because it brings a stack of features, but not for a stack of price. It's called the GWM Cannon XSR, so it's the top of the tree in the Cannon Ute range. It is priced at just under $53,000 drive away. But if that's too expensive, the entire range kicks off at under 40 grand drive away. This competes with things like the Toyota Hilux Rogue, kind of competes with the Ford Ranger Wildtrak X, and also the Mazda BT50 Thunder. They're kind of more off-road oriented versions of their standard vehicles. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this, including some light off-road driving. So if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes that are on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we drive a new GWM. Now let's talk design. So your optional colors are $600. Your white is a standard color. Big open section here on the grille. Never really understood this logo. It kind of looks like a Google Maps waypoint TomTom style thing, but it is the logo that's on their car. So it is actually, it does stand out a fair bit when you see these coming, because I always see it and I'm like, what is that? Full LED headlights over here. The XSR model, have a look at this. Gets steel front and rear bumpers. So it is definitely gauged for more off-road driving. Unfortunately, GWM hasn't given us approach and departure angles, but to me, this actually looks like it has a far better rake at the front there to give you better accessibility to off-road tracks. So I'll be interested to see how that goes when we do a little bit of light off-roading. You've got tie-down points under here. They're not rated, so you won't be using those to snatch this out of here, but in the aftermarket, they actually have a stack of rated recovery point options for you if you do want to do a bit of that. In terms of the off-road specs, and I'll run through this in more detail later on, this gets a front and rear diff lock. So it's kind of like the Ford Ranger Raptor in terms of the equipment that it gets there, which is pretty cool. Over on the side here, you've got a set of all-terrain tires. So they actually look really good. So they're Cooper Discovery AT3s. Worth pointing out here that we haven't driven this in the wet. The Ranger Raptor with the KO2s in the wet is diabolically bad. So I will be keen to have a proper crack in this when it is wet to see how it performs. Hopefully significantly better than the Ranger Raptor, because I think it's probably a bit too much of a compromise for regular on-road driving as a comparison. Red brake calipers under there, don't be fooled. It doesn't have some incredible braking system. They've just painted those red. Big wheel arch cladding here. You get a snorkel as standard on the XSR model, which is good. Look at these side steps. I'm often complaining about how chintzy and cheap side steps are on dual cab utes. This is like a proper steel setup, so really impressed with that. I like that they've gone to a bit of effort here to actually differentiate this from the rest of their range instead of just making it kind of a sticker pack. You have roof rails up the top here. You've got privacy glass. You've got a sports bar up the back here for tying things down on if you do need to. More wheel arch cladding here. I love the fact that this has rear disc brakes as well. Some brands, including Mitsubishi with the new Triton, still aren't in the current day and age and stick with drum brakes instead, strangely. Around the back, full LED tail lights. You've got a steel rear bar, including a step for retrieving things from the tray if you need to. A couple more recovery points here. Again, we don't know if they're rated or not, so I wouldn't rely on them. I'd go with an aftermarket option if you do need to. I like the fact that the camera is central as well, so when you do actually hook up anything to tow, this has a 3,000 kilo brake towing capacity. It is going to be central to line up, which means it is going to be much easier to connect. This is another great innovation too. So you've got hydraulics here for the tray, but you also have a step as well. So you push into here, the step drops down, and then you can climb in there without toppling over. So I think that is a really good thing to see, and it's nice to see they've thought about that stuff. Inside the tray, you've got tie-down points off to the side, and in terms of tray dimensions, the load length is just over 1,500 mil, and the load width is a little over 1,500 mil as well. And in addition to that, you have a payload of just under 900 kilograms. So, Cannon XSR, what do you reckon? Do you think this is where it's at for that $50,000 price bracket? Keen to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below. So we're inside the Cannon. This is what the key looks like. You've got remote start, panic, lock, unlock, and then on the back you've got the GWM logo. That way, I think. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket, and then you have a push button start down here. I really like that they've gone to a lot of effort with this cabin just to make it look nice. And this is a $50,000 car. And I just keep saying that because it amazes me how you can spend significantly more than that on a dual cab ute in Australia and it doesn't feel anywhere near as nice as this does. So I'm talking soft touch finishes up on the top there. You've got this quilted finish on the doors. Even the seats look nice and fancy as well. So good on them for giving it a crack and actually making you feel like you're getting great value for money here, including a sunroof there as well. In terms of your touch points, that's firm there, soft on the door. How soft is it? We've got our gyrometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. Now, build quality, what is it like? So, a little bit sort of flexy in the center there, but all of this feels okay. This is what the door slam sounds like. Now let's talk infotainment. So you've got a 9-inch infotainment display. Then ahead of the driver you have a smaller 7-inch LCD display. We'll start off here with the infotainment. It's a pretty straightforward setup. It doesn't have any inbuilt satellite navigation. They lean on your smartphone mirroring for that. On the radio front you have AM and FM radio, no DAB and only a 6-speaker stereo. Stereo is fine, sort of nothing to write home about. In here though you do have the settings for the rest of the vehicle's little bits and pieces like your comfort, lights, ADAS settings and all that sort of stuff. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, they're both wired. This is what Apple CarPlay looks like. Tiny bit laggy as you flick through it, but not the end of the world. And this is what Android Auto looks like. So again, wired, full screen integration. Slightly faster than Apple CarPlay, which is good. And then in addition to that, you also have a voice assistant that uses the car's internal voice control to do commands, but I just prefer to use the cancel. I just prefer to use the phone one.
Cancelled.
Love the accent. But I just prefer to use the phone one. I just think it's easier to forward commands through Siri or the Google, whatever it's called, the Google equivalent. Now, in terms of the screen ahead of the driver, there isn't really a great deal of customization there, and it can be a little bit frustrating to use, like getting back to the main menu outside of all of these warnings and settings that come up. You have to push and hold the OK button until it clears. And then if you do go anywhere near a line, for example, and it wants to bring up another warning, it then brings you back to that screen. So you can't actually ever get back there quickly. It is quite frustrating to use sometimes. So hopefully they do fix that soon. On the safety front, you've got autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You've got an auto-dimming rear vision mirror. Strangely, you've got a provision for it, but there is no blind spot monitoring. So that is a bit of a head scratcher, that one. You have rear cross traffic alert, rear parking sensors, and a 360 camera. I'll show you what that looks like. So there it is there. Quality of that's excellent, so you can clearly see out of that. And then you can also zoom in if you need to and go from a 2D to a 3D view as well, along with the sides of the car. Not a bad setup at all. This is what the horn sounds like. Moving on to practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity. You've got 2 USB-A ports down the bottom here. You've got a 12-volt outlet. Interestingly, there is actually a button up the top here to control the 12-volt outlet as well, which I haven't seen before. You have another USB-A outlet up the top here for dash camera. You have a wireless phone charger. In terms of storing your little bits and pieces, you can pop your phone down there. You've got ample storage here that actually has a cover on it as well. And then let's have a look at bottle storage. So you've got teeth in there to hold your bottle in place, which is good. Bottle storage inside the door. We'll see if our big bottle fits in there. Yes, it does, which is excellent. You've got additional storage just here next to the driver's knee, plus this center section here as well that's nice and deep. You have a glove box down the bottom here that's pretty reasonably sized as well. And finally, a sunglasses holder up the top here. Okay, so comfort. You have single zone automatic climate control. You have heated seats for the driver and front passenger. You have electric seat adjustment for the driver and front passenger, so you can go forwards and backwards. Your backrest can go forwards and backwards. You can lift the back of the seat, but you can't lift the front of the seat, which I find a little bit annoying. I wish I could sort of get the front of the seat up a little bit. Steering offers both tilt and reach adjustment. And on our reach test, all of this stuff is easy to reach while you're driving. Okay, so second row. Before I hop in, let me show you some of the little bits and pieces here. So you can lift the base of the seat. Once you do that, you have a little bit of storage under there for odds and ends. But in addition to that, you can also fold the back of the seat down as well. And in there, you're going to find just a little bit more storage as well for things like the jack. You'll also find your 2 top tether points in there as well. So we'll hop inside. Let's have a look here. Look at that, I've got heaps of knee room there. That's awesome. Tow room's great. Headroom is really good as well. You've got map pockets back here. You've got air vents. You have a 220 volt power outlet there. You've got a USB-A charger as well. Got a center armrest here. No cup holders, but a place to rest your arms. That is actually an interesting point. There are no cup holders back here outside of the doors, so that'll be a nice addition to have back here. ISO fixed points on the 2 outboard seats with 2 top tether points as well. Now, window test. So it's auto up and down. Look at that, all the way down as well. Excellent. So we've hit the road in the Cannon XSR. What's this thing all about? Look, it is all about off-roading, and that's why they've gone down the path of snorkel, all-terrain tyres, front and rear diff locks. It is really just designed to give you a vehicle that is ready to operate off-road. But does that compromise it on-road? Well, that's what I want to figure out now. So under the bonnet, you've got a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel engine. Makes 120 kilowatts of power and 400 newton meters of torque, which, to be honest, really isn't much at all. If you have a look at the rest of the competitors, Ranger Hilux, they're both at 500 newton meters now. New Triton's just been revealed, that's at 470. 400 is well and truly way down on where it needs to be, especially for a vehicle that's now adding on weight. You've got the snorkel, you've got the side steps, front and rear steel bars. Like, it is really just stacking on the kgs, but they haven't increased the output. And as a result of that, it's all mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. It is pretty lazy, so you get stuck into it, and even when it's at full noise, it doesn't really do a great deal. Biggest issue for me, though, is how laggy it is from a standing start. I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to come to a full stop here. All right, there it is there. What I'm going to do is just stand on the throttle and just watch how long it takes to do anything. So I'm on the throttle, nothing, nothing, nothing. Now I've got stuff. That is a massive delay, and you can just imagine if you are driving on a road, you need to give it some beans. It is waiting a long time for that to spool up and get moving. You can go aftermarket and get throttle adjusters that will actually give you a sharper throttle response, but ultimately I think it just needs to come down to GWM giving this thing a little bit more punch under the bonnet. GWM claims a combined fuel economy of a little under 10 litres per 100 Ks. We are currently sitting on, and this is another frustrating thing, you've got to push and hold OK to exit the lane departure menu. We're currently sitting on 9.7, which is actually pretty good. It's significantly better than I thought it was going to be. Given how lazy the engine is, I guess that is probably what you'd expect from it, but it's good that it doesn't use a huge amount of fuel. This operates slightly different to the rest of the Cannon range because instead of being a full-time four-wheel drive, this is actually a part-time four-wheel drive. So it's predominantly in two-wheel drive high range. You need to move it to four-wheel drive high range manually for it to be a four-wheel drive vehicle, but you can't use that on sealed surfaces. And if you want a better understanding of why that's the case, you can click up here to watch a video we've recorded before on four-wheel drive controls. So not a huge detriment because you do get that added four-wheel drive equipment, but it is one of the downsides to the rest of the Cannon range that is a sort of a more permanent four-wheel drive solution that you can use on a sealed surface. Okay, let's jack the speed up to 130 Ks an hour. I want to see what this is like across our sine wave. So we do this at 130 because it's the maximum speed limit in Australia. If you're going to be buying this in regional Australia, it's highly likely you're going to hit that speed when you're overtaking on a choppy section of country road, which there is plenty of. See what the body control is like at that top end at 130. It's actually surprisingly good. That's actually really impressive. So it has good body control there. It's pretty well sorted. You've got leaf springs under the rear, and typically these vehicles, if they're not settled and they don't have weight in the back, they tend to be a bit sort of all over the place, but this is actually not too bad. It is a little bit choppy in and around the city, but it's a compromise I'd be more than happy to make for that kind of compliance on the highway. Okay, bumpy road time. Worst road in Australia, what's it like? We do this at 90 Ks an hour. Gee, you can hear in my voice already that it is pretty choppy. So while you get the benefit of compliance over the sine waves there, tends to be a little choppy. Here comes our condensed sine wave. Yeah, probably just lacks that little bit of refinement that they would have found if they actually did the tune here in Australia. It just feels like it's probably a bit of a generic tune. It's on the firmer side of comfortable. probably just needs a little bit more work. Now, in terms of road noise, there is actually a fair bit of road noise that comes into the cabin. A lot of it is wind noise around the snorkel. I just think they've kind of just slapped it on and not really thought about the sort of dynamics of what that's like for wind noise inside the cabin. So you do tend to notice that at highway speeds, which is just a little bit disappointing. Let's talk visibility. So I can see clearly down the front of the vehicle there. The wing mirrors are nice and big to see down the side. And then visibility out the rear is great as well with that envelope. Turning circle comes in at just under 14 meters. It's on the bigger side, but I guess that's what you expect from a dual cab ute. Now, we don't have a sport mode, but we have cross-country expert mode. I'm going to pop it into that. We're going to go for a punt around the track here. See what this feels like. I've just left it in two-wheel drive mode, so it's gone out of cross-country expert mode because we've exceeded predefined speed, but we'll see how it feels anyway. Yeah, look, it's got a fair bit of body roll there, but there's a surprising amount of traction from those all-terrains. Typically, all-terrains tend to kill all your fun, but this is holding on really nicely. I just have my foot flat to the board. I don't think we've driven a slower car here in terms of how much it's accelerating. You could possibly just hold it flat through the whole track. That's quite funny. Yeah, it is. I don't know. I just reckon they could have just wound it up a little bit. If this had 500 newton meters of torque, this would genuinely be a rival there to the Ranger in terms of how that performs around here. The Ranger is quite a dynamic vehicle, and this has the bones to it. It just needs that little bit more punch. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with how this is performing at the moment in terms of handling, which really shouldn't be this good given the type of equipment that's currently fitted to the car. Okay, so time to test the autonomous or semi-autonomous driving features. So I'm going to set cruise at 70 k's an hour, and then once it's 70 k's an hour, we'll just wait for it to engage the lane centering function, and once that is active, we'll see how it performs in terms of keeping the vehicle in the center of the lane. So there's 70, got that active. It's pretty much sitting on the line there. I don't love that. Yeah, I don't love that at all. Yeah, it kind of needs to be nudged into position. It is trying to pull the steering in, but it's not really doing an amazing job. I'll jump over to the next lane and see how it performs up here. Just wait for that to activate. Very good system. It's kind of gone straight onto that line there. Well, now it's randomly veering over there. Yeah, this is really not a very good system at all. I think it probably needs a little bit of work. We actually found the same story in the tank as well, where it just kind of just makes up its own mind in terms of what it's doing. So yeah, really not very impressed with that. So yeah, I think the semi-autonomous driving function here really needs some work. Yeah, not very good. Okay, time to do some performance testing. I want to tell you about Help Me CarExpert first. So, CarExpert's a big company. We have a stack of vetted dealers that have cars in stock like this thing here, and those vetted dealers are primed to get you guys the best deal. All you're going to do is Google Help Me CarExpert, and all the details are on the page there. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of performance testing here. We'll see how it goes. We're going to go from 0 all the way through to 120. So it'll give us a 0 to 100 and then an 80 to 120 as well. I'm going to go into that cross-country expert mode just so there's no traction control on. And we'll see how we go. Here we go. All right. Pretty leisurely. Okay. 100. We have to use our exit road here. We're running out of space. And there's 120. All right. Oh, only just made that. We are in the depths of the exit road here. Okay, so 0 to 100. 12.72 seconds, and then 80 to 120, 11.96 seconds. That is crazy. So it took almost as long as it did from 0 to 100 to get from 80 to 120. So I think that shows you just how, I guess, underpowered this engine is. It really needs a bit more grunt to get it moving along. So, all right, let's head back and do a break from 100. Okay. 100. Oh, alrighty. Let's have a look. Typically on all terrains, it's not great. 2.95 seconds, 41.04 meters. That's actually a pretty impressive stopping distance for a vehicle like this on all terrains. So yeah, not a bad effort there. And now our reverse acceleration test. Here we go. All right, 40 kilometers an hour. Okay, let's do a little bit of light off-roading. We'll see how this performs. I want to run you through the four-wheel drive specs to start with. So GWM doesn't have approach and departure angles. They don't advertise them for some bizarre reason, but the approach and departure angles of the non-off-road version effectively are 27 and 25 degrees respectively. So that's the angle of the face you can approach before you hit something at the front, and then the departure angle is the same but at the rear. Ground clearance of almost 230 millimeters. And in terms of off-road equipment, so I mentioned earlier, you've got front and rear diff locks. You have four-wheel drive low range, four-wheel drive high range, two-wheel drive high range, 3 off-road modes. In addition to that, you have crawl control. So that's a speed adjustable hill ascent and descent feature. You have turn assist, which I'm going to demonstrate a little bit later on. And then you also have a standard hill descent control as well. So it is jam-packed full of gear. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go over our offset mogul first in two-wheel drive high range. We want to see how well the traction control system works and whether it is capable of limiting wheel slip and getting you where you need to go without switching into four-wheel drive high range. We do this test with every single car that we test here, so it's just a really good indicator of how well it actually works as a two-wheel drive. So here we go. We will line it up. Nice and dry today, so it should actually do okay. So we'll approach our mogul here, wait till we get that rear tyre off the ground. Once that rear tyre is off the ground, I'll just lean into the throttle here and see how well traction control works. So leaning into the throttle now, I can see the traction control light flashing. It's actually doing a really good job. Yeah, we're in two-wheel drive high range. Nice. That's actually done really well. So previously with the Cannon, we've had issues with the traction control system. Here, on the other hand, it's done a great job of limiting wheel slip and then just getting us over the obstacles. So really nice job there. Okay, time to give four-wheel drive high range a crack. So I'm going to switch this over to four-wheel drive high range. In terms of the modes you have here, what have we got? We've got this mode, which is sand. We have snow, and then we have mud mode. So each of those is going to adjust the way that it interacts with traction control, but we'll just leave it on four-wheel drive high range for the moment and just see how it performs over this. So creep up to here, get it into a situation where we have a cross axle setup. So we have only 2 tyres with traction. So that is just there. And then I'll lean on the throttle and we'll see how well it performs. So here we go. I can hear traction control kicking in there. Lean on the throttle a little bit more. Yeah, nice. That has done an exceptional job. Very impressive there. So I didn't have to engage any diff locks or anything like that. It is worth calling out as well that the rear diff lock works in two-wheel drive high range as well. So that is pretty cool. Let's head over to our hill and we'll give that a crack now. Okay, so it is time to tackle our hill. Given this has so many features, let's just try it with the rear diff locked in low range for the moment. And then if it struggles, I can then pop it into the front diff lock mode and then we'll come back and try it again with the crawl control feature. So that's in low range. I'll lock the rear diff as well. All right, that's all engaged. Let's give this a shot and see how it goes. So just gradual throttle up here. This is ridiculous. What a walk in the park. That is unreal. Look, it is pretty dry here at the moment, but gotta say, it was absolutely effortless just then. So Yeah, incredibly good effort there. No dramas at all. So we'll go back and give that another crack. I reckon we'll even skip the stopping part and I'll just go straight into the crawl control mode. Let's try our hill descent here. So I'm going to disengage the rear diff lock, pull the hill descent on, and then we will see how it goes once we crest this. I can't actually see anything over the edge there, so pop that camera on. Nice, I can see with that camera running. So here we go. To the top here, come to a stop, and then let go of the brake. Little touch down there as we crested. Yeah, nice. It's all sort of pretty slow down there, nothing too crazy. So we'll head back again and give our hill a crack with crawl control running. So you activate it by pressing this button here, and it comes up here asking you what speed you want to use, and you use cruise control to adjust that speed. So just going to let off the brake now and just see how it runs up here with that set on level 3. So here we go. This is ridiculous. Just a walk in the park. That is unreal. It is just cruising through that. Genuinely wasn't expecting this. I know that this terrain isn't really all that difficult, but this has caught out a few vehicles before, and I think it just shows you that you just need a really well sorted four-wheel drive system, and then you're going to be right as rain. Now, it is worth mentioning at this point as well that you do have off-road thermal management mode, so it actually runs the fans a little bit longer and harder to dissipate the heat under the bonnet there. So a really good feature if you are doing some more hardcore off-roading. So there is no speed management on the hill descent control, but with the crawl control running, you just set the speed here using cruise, and then away it goes. So pretty good. Okay, time to go over the rocks. I'm going to leave the rear diff lock engaged, and I'll just load up the brake with the throttle. Let's see how it goes through here. So just under 230 mil of ground clearance. I have noticed it touch down a couple of times now, just like then. So yeah, it is okay, but I'm just thinking that if you are going to be doing anything sort of too crazy, I'd probably want to be getting just a slight bit more of a lift just to make it easy. But in terms of comfort here over the rocks, it actually doesn't feel too bad. It's not sort of throwing us around too much, which is good. All good, very happy with that. One thing I have noticed here is we are getting a lot of interference from the traction control when the diff is locked. Like right now, it's almost coming to a complete stop because it's constantly trying to apply traction control when I have part throttle load. And I think the only way to overcome that is actually to switch everything off. The setting is disabled in the current sub-brake state. Yeah, so I think that's probably something they need to sort out, because when I turn the steering and have throttle applied, it's trying to apply traction control when the diff's locked, which is bad news for everyone involved in that equation. Both the rear diff lock and the traction control system is just going to be forever fighting each other. So that's something that I think they need to sort out. But let's go through our river crossing now. It's around 650 mil. This has a wading depth of 700 mil, so I'll be interested to see how this goes. And we'll lock the front diff for this one as well and just see how this performs. So here we go. Got the snorkel. We're all set. Okay. Yeah, nice. No dramas there. All right, here's our climb out. Let's see how much clearance we have there. Yeah, no touching, which is good. All right. Stay on the throttle here. Beautiful. Very straightforward. Alrighty. Now, last thing I want to show you is turn assist. So I'm going to set the car up here so I can demonstrate exactly how this works. It's designed to brake individual wheels to tighten your turning circles. So I'll show you what I mean. Right now I've got it in four-wheel drive high range. I'm just going to do a U-turn here. You can get a feel for exactly what this is like. So you can see there it's pushing pretty wide. And then I'll straighten up there, and that gives you an idea of what it's like normally. Now let's try it with turn assist on. Okay, so we are starting from the same position again. I've got to put it into low range for turn assist to work. Once low range is active, you have to engage crawl control and then turn assist. Wait for that to It goes solid, there it is. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing again, just put full steering lock on. Now what it's doing, it's braking individual wheels, so it's braking an inside wheel there and overcoming that braking with a little bit of engine throttle. And there it is there. It is a much tighter turning radius. And it's going to be useful for things like trails and stuff where you've got tight U-turns. This will help you really tuck it in there and turn it around. You don't want to be using this on sealed surfaces, but on unsealed surfaces like this where you have that degree of slip, it's going to be perfectly fine. So in terms of this as an off-road vehicle, it's actually performed really well. It's done a good job here with little fuss. I am a little concerned by that traction control system though. It is constantly biting and it appears you can't totally switch it off when you have the diff locks active in four-wheel drive low range. Well, I couldn't figure out how to do it. So that is going to ultimately affect the way this performs off-road, because you're going to be battling the diff lock and the traction control the entire time, which is going to get pretty bloody frustrating. But let me know if you've driven one of these off-road extensively. What is it like? How do you overcome those things? I'm keen to see your feedback. So Cannon XSR, what do we reckon? Look, I think it's actually really commendable. The price is ridiculous, but ridiculous in a good way. It is so cheap compared to some of the competitors in this segment that charge so much more for the same kit that you're getting here. It is let down by the engine though. I reckon it needs a stack more punch than 400 Newton meters. And the traction control systems when you are off-road probably need a little bit of tuning as well. But outside of that, I think they've actually done a really good job here in terms of delivering excellent value for money and a vehicle that you shouldn't be afraid to modify. I think with a few mods, this would be a go anywhere dual cab ute, and probably with a couple of very minor engine mods that'd have the punch that it really needs. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you reckon this is good value for money? Would you be considering one of these over some of the more well-known brands? I'm keen to see what you think. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, drive safely.